Monk is an American comedy-drama detective mystery television series created by Andy Breckman and starring Tony Shalhoub as the eponymous character, Adrian Monk. It originally ran from 2002 to 2009 and is primarily a police procedural series, and also exhibits comic and dramatic tones in its exploration of the main characters' personal lives. The series was produced by Mandeville Films and Touchstone Television in association with Universal Television. The series debuted on July 12, 2002, on USA Network. It continued for 8 seasons, with the final season concluding on December 4, 2009. The series held the record for the most-watched scripted drama episode in cable television history from 2009 through 2012 with Mr. Monk and the End, Part 2. Its series finale, with 9.4 million viewers, 3.2 million of them in the 18 to 49 demographic. The series has received positive reviews, winning numerous prestigious awards including 8 Emmys. Premise: Adrian Monk was a brilliant detective for the San Francisco Police Department until his wife, Trudy, was killed by a car bomb in a parking garage, which Monk then believed was intended for him. In a later episode, he discovers the bomb was truly meant for Trudy. He later believes that Trudy's death was a part of a larger conspiracy that she had uncovered during her time as a journalist. Trudy's death led Monk to suffer a nervous breakdown. He was then discharged from the force and became a recluse, refusing to leave his house for 3.5 years. Until the final episode, Trudy's death was Monk's only unsolved case. He is finally able to leave the house with the help of his nurse, Sharona Fleming. The breakthrough allows him to work as a private detective and a consultant for the homicide unit despite limitations rooted in his obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, which had grown significantly worse after the tragedy, along with several other phobias. Monk's compulsive habits are numerous, and a number of phobias compound his situation, such as his fear of germs. Monk has 312 fears, some of which are milk, ladybugs, harmonicas, heights, imperfection, claustrophobia, driving, food touching on his plates, messes and risk. He however had a breakthrough from claustrophobia later in the series. The OCPD and plethora of phobias inevitably lead to very awkward situations and cause problems for Monk and anyone around him as he investigates cases. These same personal struggles, particularly the OCPD, are what aid him in solving cases, such as his sharp memory, specific mindset, and attention to detail. In one episode entitled Mr. Monk and His Biggest Fan, Marcy Maven has compiled a list of all of Adrian's fears. In another episode, he tries to conquer his fears by doing various activities which involved his phobias. For example, he tries drinking milk, climbing a ladder, and putting a ladybug on his hand, but when things are scattered unorganized across a table, he cannot resist the compulsion to arrange them neatly. Captain Leland Stottlemeyer and Lieutenant Randy Disher call on Monk when they have trouble with an investigation. Stottlemeyer is often irritated by Monk's behavior but respects his friend and former colleague's amazing insight and observational abilities, as does Disher. Ever since childhood, Monk's obsessive attention to detail allowed him to spot tiny discrepancies, find patterns, and make connections that others often missed. Something someone says or does usually triggers Monk to make the connection. In his spare time, Monk continues to search for information about his wife's death, and is plagued with the idea that he may never determine who killed Trudy. He dedicates his life to solving other murders because he feels this is fixing disorder in the world. In the middle of season 3, Sharona decides to remarry her ex-husband and move back to New Jersey, prompting Mr. Monk to hire Natalie Teeger as his new assistant. Natalie is a widow and mother of an 11-year-old daughter, Julie. Monk discovers Natalie when she is involved in a murder case herself, in Mr. Monk and the Red Herring. Monk has a brother Ambrose and a half-brother, Jack Jr., whom Monk never knew about until his father tells him in Season 5. He later meets Jack Jr. in the episode Mr. Monk's Other Brother, during Season 7. Characters. Main Adrian Monk is a former homicide detective turned consultant for the San Francisco Police Department. He has an extreme case of OCD and is well known for his various fears and phobias, including, but certainly not limited to, heights, snakes, crowds, glaciers, rodeos and milk. His wife Trudy was murdered in 1997, and he is haunted by her death until the series finale. Sharona Fleming is Monk's nurse and later becomes his first assistant. She refuses to baby him, often forcing him to do things that are unpleasant to him. Her final appearance as a regular character is in Mr. Monk Takes His Medicine, and moves to New Jersey midway through Season 3, leaving only a note. However, she returns in the final season in Mr. Monk and Sharona, in order to give closure to her character. By Mr. Monk and the End, it was revealed that she and Randy have moved to New Jersey together. Natalie Teager is Monk's second and final assistant. Although she is more deferential to her boss than Sharona, referring to him as Mr. Monk, she is not hesitant about telling him when his eccentricities are going too far. A young widow who lives with her daughter Julie, Natalie lost her husband Mitch when he was shot down over Kosovo in 1998. She first appears in Mr. Monk and the Red Herring. Natalie was introduced partway through Season 3 when Bitty Schramm, who played Sharona, left Precipitous Lie, reportedly over a contract dispute. Trailer Howard had not yet seen the show and was unenthusiastic about her manager's urgings to audition as Schramm's replacement. She nevertheless tried out and got the part. Despite her initial cool reception from fans, show co-creator Andy Breckman believes Trailer quickly and successfully filled the void. I will always be grateful to Trailer because she came in when the show was in crisis and saved our baby. We had to make a hurried replacement, and not every show survives that. I was scared to death. Captain Leland Stottlemeyer is the head of the Homicide Division of the San Francisco Police Department. He and Monk have been good friends since Monk was on the police force, and he continues to be Monk's friend throughout the series. He does his best to help Monk but is occasionally annoyed by Monk's phobias and the damage they can cause. In the first 2 seasons, Stottlemeyer is reluctant to work with Monk, seemingly annoyed by the idea that he could not handle his cases himself. By Seasons 3 and 4, his faith in Monk's contribution is well cemented and his collaboration unquestionable. Lieutenant Randy Disher is a lieutenant in the Homicide Division of the SFPD. He is naive and often portrayed as slightly dim. The other characters are often irritated by him, but they also care about him. In Season 8 he is seen kissing Sharona, and in the series finale he moves to Summit, New Jersey where they move in together. He becomes chief of police there. Secondary Julie Teager is Natalie's teenage daughter. She first appeared in Mr. Monk and the Red Herring, and last appeared in Mr. Monk and the End, Part 1. In her final appearance, Julie prepares to attend college to study theater. Dr. Charles Kroger was Monk's psychiatrist during the first 6 seasons of the show. His last appearance is in Mr. Monk Paints His Masterpiece. His character was said to have died of a heart attack as well when Monk returned for the Season 7. Dr. Neven Bell is Monk's second psychiatrist. He first appears in Mr. Monk Buys a House. Dr. Bell was introduced in 2008 to replace Drive Kroger after the death of actor Stanley Camel. Trudy Monk is Monk's deceased wife. Her husband Monk's attempt to solve her murder is the show's longest-running plot arc, from the premiere episode to the 125th finale episode. Kevin Dorfman was an accountant and Monk's talkative and nosy upstairs neighbor. He first appears in the Season 2 episode, Mr. Monk and the Paperboy. He was murdered by fellow magician Carl Torini in the Season 7 episode, Mr. Monk and the Magician. Harold Crenshaw is Adrian's rival for much of the series and another patient of Dr. Kroger. He and Monk have constant disputes, due to their incompatible obsessions. Harold first appeared in Mr. Monk and the Girl Who Cried Wolf, when he and Monk bickered about the arrangement of magazines in Dr. Kroger's waiting room. In Mr. Monk and the Election, Crenshaw is Natalie's opponent for a spot on her daughter Julie's school board. He is prominently mentioned in the beginning of Mr. Monk and the Actor. He plays a critical role in Mr. Monk Gets a New Shrink. He plays an unusual role in Mr. Monk and the Daredevil, with disclosure of details of his past and introduction to his family. After Dr. Kroger dies, Harold constantly tries to discover the identity of Monk's new therapist. He finally does uncover Drive Bell's name in Mr. Monk Fights City Hall. He bumps into an undercover Monk in Mr. Monk is Someone Else. In the episode, Mr. Monk Goes to Group Therapy, Harold and Monk finally become friends by conquering claustrophobia together. Harold generously leaves the group at the end of the episode so that Monk can share private therapy with Dr. Bell. Benji Fleming is Sharona's son. His last appearance is in the Season 3 episode, Mr. Monk and the Employee of the Month. Ambrose Monk is Adrian's agoraphobic brother. He is based on Mycroft Holmes. He first appears in the Season 2 episode, Mr. Monk and the Three Pies, for which John Turturro won an Emmy for his performance. Jack Monk is the father of Adrian and Ambrose. He abandoned the family when Adrian and Ambrose were young and started another family. He appears only in the Season 5 episode, Mr. Monk Meets His Dad. Jack Monk, Jr. is the other son of Jack Monk, Adrian's half-brother and a known convict. He appears only in the Season 7 episode, Mr. Monk's other brother. Dale, the Whale. Beiderbecke is Adrian Monk's archenemy and most hated rival. He is a wealthy and morbidly obese financier whom Adrian blames for ruining one of the last years of Trudy's life. He first appears in Mr. Monk Meets Dale the Whale, at the end of which Monk sends him to prison for a murder for hire. Beiderbecke later appears funneling information to Monk about Trudy's murder in Mr. Monk Goes to Jail. At the end of Mr. Monk Is on the Run, Dale, the Whale, loses his pocket politician during a failed conspiracy to assassinate the governor and is left destitute and powerless for the remainder of his sentence. Karen Stottlemeyer is Leland Stottlemeyer's wife from the beginning of the series until their divorce in Mr. Monk and the Captain's Marriage. It is later revealed in the Season 8 episode, Mr. Monk Is the Best Man, that she is actually Leland's second wife. She is a filmmaker who specializes in documentaries. She first appears in Mr. Monk and the Very, Very Old Man. Linda Fusco is Captain Stottlemeyer's girlfriend in Season 6. She first appears in Mr. Monk, Private Eye, and later in Mr. Monk and His Biggest Fan. She last appears in Mr. Monk and the Bad Girlfriend. Trudy Jensen is Captain Stottlemeyer's love interest in Season 8. She is a freelance journalist, first appearing in Happy Birthday, Mr. Monk, and marries Stottlemeyer in Mr. Monk Is the Best Man. Marcy Maven is Monk's overzealous admirer. She first appears in Mr. Monk and the TV Star, and later in Mr. Monk and His Biggest Fan, and Mr. Monk's 100th Case episodes. Episode titles much like novels in a series about a starring detective. All but one of the episodes have titles in the form of Mr. Monk and, e.g., Mr. Monk and the Bad Girlfriend, Mr. Monk, e.g., Mr. Monk Goes to the Circus, Mr. Monk, e.g., Mr. Monk Is on the Run, or Mr. Monk Gets, e.g., Mr. Monk Gets Hypnotized. The only exception to this rule is the Season 8 episode, Happy Birthday, Mr. Monk. While solving a murder is the main plot for most episodes, there are a few episodes in which Monk helps investigate other crimes, such as kidnappings in the Season 2 episode, Mr. Monk and the Missing Granny, and the Season 3 episode, Mr. Monk and the Kid, or a failed murder plot in the Season 6 episode, Mr. Monk and the Daredevil. There are a number of times where the episode is not about the murder itself but about finding evidence to arrest the killer, e.g., Mr. Monk Goes to a Rock Concert, or Mr. Monk and the Genius, and episodes where the murder is related to the main plot, e.g., in Mr. Monk on Wheels. Some episodes actually start as a totally different type of case, but eventually a murder happens, e.g., a suspected abduction turns into a murder case in Mr. Monk Gets Hypnotized. In Season 7, in the 100th episode, Mr. Monk solved his 100th case since his wife's death, a milestone in his career. In a humorous twist, in the episode, Mr. Monk and his biggest fan, Marcy Maven refers directly to cases Mr. Monk has solved by the titles of the episodes. Plot formats: episodes about a murder generally follow one of four basic plot outlines. The killer is known, and how the crime was committed is known. The episode is spent trying to find evidence to arrest that person, and these episodes are hence patterned similarly to many episodes of Columbo. Monk knows who the killer is, and knows what the motive is, but the killer has a seemingly airtight alibi. The episode is spent trying to break that alibi and find out how the killer did it. In a number of episodes, the plot involves trying to find out the killer, how the murder was done, and why. In some episodes, the killer's MO is known, but not who did it or why. Here's What Happened segments. Most episodes feature a sequence in which Monk reveals how the crime was committed, almost always prefaced with the words, "Here's what happened," and shown in black and white. Most of these sequences are featured near the end of the episode, but have occasionally occurred at the beginning or towards the middle. Some of these sequences are told in an unusual fashion, such as being told to Aubert, in the form of a bedtime story, being chanted during a ritual at a monastery, in a dream, being told by someone other than Monk, being rapped out by a rapper, and being told in another language in Mr. Monk Falls in Love. Harold Prenshaw gives a fictitious summation about Monk in Mr. Monk Goes to Group Therapy. Monk states a summation twice, in flashback and in present, in Mr. Monk and Little Monk, as himself and as young Monk. In at least 2 episodes, Monk gives multiple versions of the same summation, but all except for the last one are false as a result of his being unable to concentrate. In Mr. Monk Gets Cabin Fever, Monk and Disher give simultaneous summations of different crimes. There are only a few episodes that do not contain a summation. The first episode not to feature a summation was the Season 1 episode, Mr. Monk and the Airplane.